AC, please. AC and water bottle. Hi Netra, good afternoon. How are you, Netra? Happy Holi to you. I'm good too. I'm good too. Festival is around, so is the festive vibes. Vidyapati Roshan, good afternoon. A very, very lovely good afternoon to you as well. Happy Holi to all of you. Thank you, Netra. Thank you so much. How is your studies going? How are you coping up with the economy as well as the other subjects? Are you appearing for mock tests? Are you giving the test series, or some practice questions that you're solving? Are you gearing up yourself with the CSAT also? Also, did you read the editorial which I was referring to yesterday? Hello, Kesu. Good afternoon and happy Holi to you as well. Are you all taking care of CSAT as well? Because you see, with the passing of years, the level of questions asked in CSAT is also drastically improving. It's increasing. The difficulty level is getting increased year by year. Very good, Netra. Very good. You should keep appearing for test. At least 50 mocks is something which you should appear before going for the final exam, which is on 5th of June. It's for all of you, just not particular to one person, but to all the students who are preparing for UPSC Prelims 2022 and are appearing this year. At least 50 mocks is something what you have to practice. And 50, when I say, is just not it does not include CSAT. For CSAT, you have to prepare separately, appear for mocks separately. When I say that 50 mocks, I am just referring to the GS paper 1. Just the prelims, just the syllabus and the subjects that we read: geography, polity, history, economy, environment science, schemes, programs, all of that. At least 50 papers is something what you need to practice. If you go beyond that, that is amazing, that's very good, but at least this is something which everyone should do along with the previous year question papers, because previous year question papers helps you in identification of themes. It helps you know that in what depth you have to cover a particular topic. It will also help you to understand till what extent you have to read the newspaper, in what depth you have to read. What is reading between the lines is only when you go through the previous year question papers. Previous year questions are there imprinted in your mind, and only when it is the situation, then you would be able to know as to how much do you have to deep dive into newspaper as well as the syllabus. So let's wait for 1 or say 2 more minutes for others to join, and then we will continue with the session. Till then, if you have any doubt, then please feel free to ask me. What about you, Vidyapati? Are you also appearing for some test series? First question is, are you preparing for this year prelims or not? Is the prelims that is scheduled on 5th of June 2022 is your attempt, or you are preparing for next year, maybe next to next year's attempt? Vidyapati is there, Keshu is there. What about you, you two? Are you also appearing for this year's attempt? Jaldi bataiye, what is the case with you? Is it your first attempt, both of you, Vidyapati and Kesu? Is this your first attempt? Okay, very good, Vidyapati. So I hope and I believe that you are preparing and appearing for tests also. You must have joined some test series by now, or if not test series in some institutes, then you are practicing mock paper, because as I told, and since it's your first attempt, as you have written it here, it's very important for you to get a hang of the paper as to what type of questions are asked, you are posed with what sort of questions, and you will get only when you appear for mocks, you go through previous year question papers. If you're not acquainted with all of this, then it's very difficult for you to gauge as to in what depth you have to prepare any particular topic. So I hope and believe that you must be preparing, or you must be appearing for some mock tests. Keshu's reply is still awaited. Anyway, now let's start with today's session. Yesterday, this is the question where we left, where we were talking about, along with the budget, the finance minister has to place other documents before the parliament, which includes the macroeconomic framework statement. Okay, now this macroeconomic framework statement is prescribed because, or it is mandated under which act or statute? So the answer was the provisions of FRBM Act, which is Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act, and the act was introduced in 2003, and the reason to introduce the act was to have a control on the level of fiscal deficit and the revenue deficit of the government, to have a prudence economic policy in order to be for the better debt management of the country. For the better debt management of the country, the act was introduced, and again there was a revision with respect to it in. So there was a committee formed under the chairmanship of N.K. Singh, and which prescribed certain recommendations. Also, we had to talk about, actually, we also talked about, there were 3 figures that has to be denoted as a percentage of GDP. What were those 3 figures? We ended up the yesterday's session talking about the 3 figures that has to be denoted as the percentage of GDP when the budget is laid. Who will tell me those 3 figures? Kaun batayega? Who will tell me those 3 figures that has to be told and depicted as a percentage of GDP along when the budget is laid in the parliament? Kaun batayega aap mein se? Come on. That was there in the yesterday's session. We ended up the session talking about those figures only, those economic parameters only. Netra, do you remember that? Netra, do you remember the figures or the economic parameters that I'm talking about. I think nobody remembers, or I don't know, are you taking so much time to reply, whereas this should be on your tips as to what are those economic parameters that has to be prescribed as a percentage of GDP. Anyway, so this is the correct answer. Let's move on to the next question. So the next question says that the FRBM, the Fiscal Responsibility Budget Management Review Committee report, has recommended a debt to GDP ratio, of 60% for the general, that is the combined of the central government, that is the union government and the state government by 2023, comprising 40% for the central government and 20% for the state government. The next statement says that, very good, Netra, that fiscal deficit as a percentage of GDP, tax as a percentage of GDP, and revenue deficit as a percentage of GDP. This is something which is mandated, which is prescribed by FRBM Act, and that has to be laid along with the budget when it is tabled in the parliament. Very good. Chalo, we had a quick revision with what Netra provided us. Chalo, so where were we? We were talking about the first statement. So this is the first statement. The second statement says the central government has a domestic liability of 21% of GDP as compared to that of 49% of GDP by the state government. And the third statement says that as per the Constitution of India, it is mandatory for a state to take the central government's consent for raising any loan if the former owes any outstanding liabilities to the latter. Now, the third statement says that if the state government has any debt or an obligation to serve to the union government, then if it wants to raise any loan further, it has to obtain the consent of the center. Before or without the consent of the center, the state government cannot approach or cannot move forward or cannot take a loan if it is indebted to whom? To the center. So this is what? This is mentioned under Article 293 of the Constitution. I believe those who say that they are well acquainted or they have completed Lakshmikant, they must be in a better position to know that yes, this statement is right, that as per the Constitution of India, it is mandatory for a state to take the consent of the central government if it is indebted to the central government and they are taking any or raising any loan. So this statement is right. So, which means this can be eliminated and the option has to be between these three. Now moving on to the first statement. So if you would have learned the provisions of FRBM Act 2003, it is mentioned there that the total debt to GDP ratio, that has been recommended should not exceed 60% of the GDP, out of which 40% is being allocated to the central government and 20% has been allocated for the state government. So this statement is also right. So we can eliminate this statement, this option also, and what is left with us is these two. Now, even if you're not sure of this statement, so how would you apply a smart guess for such statements? Agar hum sure nahi yaad what was the exact percentage that was prescribed under FRBM Act, then how to approach such statement? The technique is that even if you apply common sense भी apply karenge, you will find that the central government's liability would be certainly more than the state government's liabilities. By center has a bigger role to play. It has more responsibilities to take as compared to the states, right? So the central government domestic liabilities of 21% of GDP. No, that is not possible. What is written is 21% of GDP is the central government's domestic liability and 49% of GDP is the state government's liability, which if you apply the common sense is wrong. That cannot happen. It is because center has a bigger role to play for in the development of economy, and certainly their liabilities would be far more than what state government's liability are or is as a percentage of GDP. कॉमन सेंस की बात है तो ये स्टेटमेंट तो हो जाएगा अपने आप ही गलत. Even if you don't know, all you have to apply is common sense. सोचो वहां बैठ के that center undertakes so many of responsibilities like development of infrastructure, payment of subsidies, farm loan waiver, defense acquisition. All of that is not the responsibility of the states. So certainly the expenditure done by the center is far more than what the expenditure is done by the state government. So their liabilities as a percentage of GDP would be certainly higher than what the state governments would have. So this is wrong, making this statement first and third right. Fine. So now again, if you would have remember that we started making a list of important topics. We started off making a list of important topics for the exam. Let us make it once again. Important topics for prelims 2022. बना रहे थे ना, who all were there making this list along with me? I suppose Netra was certainly there. I don't know where are others. I think they are in the festive mood and have not joined the class yet today. And maybe they would be watching the recorded session later. Anyway, so another important topic that I would like to add into our important topics list is the FRBM Act. FRBM Act 2003. Now, when I say this is important, what other, thank you, UPSC PCS mentor, I don't know who you are, but thank you for the, your comments. I would rather ask you to focus more on the class, and this we can certainly discuss later. Anyway, so when I talk about or when I say FRBM Act 2003 is important, what other things that you have to note is, or what other things you have to prepare is the level of, or the trends. I would say, I would rather mention it as trends. Trends in fiscal deficit level, the revenue deficit level. Okay. Other thing that you need to know as to what is the new target that has been allocated for the fiscal deficit. What is escape clause? What is escape clause? Can anyone please tell me as to what escape clause is? क्या कोई बता सकता है as to what escape clause is all about? Can anyone tell as to what escape clause is all about? Was it invoked? Was it used? Was it invoked during the time of pandemic? क्या ये यूज किया गया था कि नहीं किया गया था? Can anyone tell me that? The new target is 4.5% of GDP by 2025-26. This has been prescribed by our finance minister this year, that earlier the target was to achieve 3% of the GDP. The fiscal deficit target that was there was 3% of the GDP. By which year? By which year? By which year we were supposed to achieve the target of 3% of the GDP? What is the minimum acceptance limit under escape clause? .5% variation is what is permitted under the escape clause. Now tell me, till when we were supposed to achieve this target of 3% of GDP? बताइए. If you don't know, then please put some effort and Google it and post it here, because my whole and sole agenda is to try to make you memorize the things. Abhi yahan yaad kar loge, then you will remember for longer time, because you would remember that somebody has asked you this question and you were not able to answer it, and so you googled it, and that is how you will remember it. So till when was the time that we were supposed to achieve the target of 3% of GDP of fiscal deficit? Niranjan is saying 2021. This UPSC PCS mentor is saying 2023. करेक्ट आंसर क्या है फिर? टॉस कर ले, टॉस करें क्या? What to do? What is the correct answer? Who will tell me the correct answer? One of the students saying it's 2021, another one is saying it's 2023. Who will tell me the correct answer? बहुत देर लगा दो, ठीक है. I'll keep it pending for all of you to check, because I don't want to spoon feed you with every single thing. Anyway, now another thing that you have to prepare is the trends in fiscal deficit and revenue deficit. Where has been, or what is the target of fiscal deficit for this year? That is 2022. For those who want spoon feeding, it is somewhere around, sorry, not the target, but right now our fiscal deficit is somewhere around 6.5-6.7% of GDP. Okay, now let us quickly look at the graph also, because I know after the session nobody will put an effort to go and check the economic survey and see as to what has been the trend. And you never know, kab prelims mein question aata hai talking about the trend in the fiscal deficit or asking about the trend in the revenue deficit level. So if you see, is the graph visible to you? Is the graph visible to you? Okay. Now if you see, the fiscal deficit is denoted by this line. So I'll change the color of the pen for you. So this is fiscal deficit. Can you see a trend? Can you see a trend? This is fiscal deficit. We will use red color maybe for revenue deficit. So this is effective revenue deficit. And this yellow line is the primary deficit. Now for those who want the revision as to what fiscal deficit is total expenditure minus total receipts minus borrowings. Revenue deficit is what? Revenue deficit is revenue expenditure minus revenue receipts. Clear? Then effective revenue deficit is revenue deficit minus grants for creation of capital assets. Now when we talk about the trend, if you see all of it, whether it is fiscal deficit, whether if it is primary deficit or effective revenue deficit, all of has fallen after the pandemic. In the year 2021, 2022, all of it, be it is fiscal deficit, effective revenue deficit or the primary deficit, all of them has fallen. Clear? So if we talk about trend, then there is no consistent pattern that is being formed. So that is all you have to know about the graph and the trends when you prepare for these figures. अब कोई डाउट है तो पूछो. No, Mr. Mentor, Miss Mentor, I don't know who you are. I would rather appreciate if you provide me with your real name. No, I have not appeared in this year's mains. I have been teaching since last 3 years. I am whole and soul into teaching of economy. So no, I have not appeared in this year mains. But certainly I have taken the analysis of how the mains paper was this year. And that is where I read. I read the question paper every year, but I didn't appear for it. I hope it solves your query, your doubt, which was not a legitimate one in the class. I would rather prefer you to, restrict the questions and doubt with respect to the class only. Anyway, moving on to the next question. Yes, Gaurav, because the last one is the estimates. The final figure and the revised figure will come after certain time, because the economic survey is released just one day before the budget, and they do not have the actual figure for the whole year. That will only appear, or that will only get released once the financial year gets over. That is why it is said that it is an estimate, the budgeted estimates. So you can rely on the data as to what the budgeted estimates is providing. So as per the budgeted estimates, the fiscal deficit has declined in the financial year 2021 and 2022. So if there's a question that asks you, or if there's a statement that is there in the exam, so you should be very sure and very crystal clear about this, that the fiscal deficit, the primary deficit and effective revenue deficit all have fallen after the 2021-2022. Yes, Gaurav. Yes, you have to consider it for deficit trends, because you never know. See, if you see from last 6-7 years, every alternate year and sometimes every year, there has been a question talking about a trend in some economic parameter, whether it is related to the import of a particular commodity, or as a tax to GDP ratio, or the level of fiscal deficit. And that is why I acquainted you with the graph, that how do you have to approach the graph. I hope that solves your doubt. Now moving on to the next question, which is about the money bill. So what is the feature of the money bill? The first feature is that it is introduced in what? It is introduced in Lok Sabha. Who has the authority to decide that the bill, a particular bill, is the money bill or not? It is the Speaker of the Lok Sabha, right? Though a mix of you can say a polity question, a blend of you can actually consider this question under the polity subject also, as well as you can talk about this topic, that is the money bill, under economy also. So Speaker of the Lok Sabha is the one who decides as to whether a bill is a money bill or not. And the last but not least, the amendments by Rajya Sabha. So are we bound? I mean, is the Lok Sabha bound by the suggestions provided by the Rajya Sabha, or can it just ignore and pass the bill? Is the amendments prescribed by Rajya Sabha is something which is Lok Sabha is bound to accept? So sorry. Are you clear with this point or not? Whether the suggestions or the amendments provided by Rajya Sabha on a money bill that is presented to them, is the Lok Sabha bound by the amendments or the suggestions? Lok Sabha can refuse to accept and can proceed with the bill without considering the suggestions or the amendments provided by the Rajya Sabha. Lok Sabha is not bound by the suggestions provided by the Rajya Sabha. ठीक है? Yes, Netra, very well. Ignore and pass the bill. So which is the right answer? Bataiye, question 6 is a very easy one. Tell me which amongst the following is the correct option? Which amongst the following is the correct option? When you are clear with as to what money bill is all about, I'm very glad to know that most of you are very clear with the concept. Let me know as to what is the right answer. What about others? Why are you not replying? What about the others? Gaurav, what is your take on this question? Gaurav, who else is there? Why are people not active? Niranjan, I think you only told me that you have appeared for, you are very okay with economy. Then tell me what is the right answer for this. Yes, because the question asks us that which of the following statement is not correct. Which of the following statement is not correct? The answer is this. Because the money bill is concerned with the appropriation of the money out of contingency fund of India. Very good that most of you have provided me with the right answer. Now let's move on to the next question. So this question pertains to the topic goods and service tax. Tax मतलब क्या है? Government के लिए revenue है. Which kind of revenue it is for the government? It is the tax revenue. GST was launched with an idea of one nation, one tax, in order to provide uniformity in the taxation system. So this was the agenda behind launching or introducing the GST Act. And let's go through the statement. It will replace multiple taxes collected by the multiple authorities and thus create a single market in India. Yes, with respect to two other statements, I would want you to brainstorm on it, whether these two statements are right and wrong. I'll provide you a minute to watch, see, and think about what would be the correct option with respect to question number 7. Yes. So what is your take on this? Why it is not that with the implementation of GST, the current account deficit of India will fall or reduce and it will increase the forex reserves of the country? भाई ये तो कोई एजेंडा ही नहीं है ना. We never know whether the current account deficit. The current account deficit is related to what? It is related to balance of payment. It is related to balance of payment, whereas the tax revenue have a bearing on what? It has a bearing on the fiscal deficit of the government. The tax revenue has a bearing on the fiscal deficit of the government and not on the balance of payment. Whereas if you see this statement, current account deficit to current account deficit kahan aata hai? Very good afternoon Bhavani. Good afternoon Pratyush. So current account deficit is related to balance of payment, and tax revenue is nowhere related to balance of payment. Balance of payment is a statement talking about the transaction of the residents with the non-residents, right? That too also, Pratyush, drastically and the enormously. No, that is not the right approach with respect to this question, dear. What you have to do is you have to understand the concepts. देखो, current account deficit क्या है? Current account deficit is related to balance of payment. And what is balance of payment? Balance of payment क्या होता है? It is a statement which shows the transaction that are conducted between the residents of a country with the outside world. And when we talk about the GST, it's a tax revenue. It is a source of revenue for the government, and it would have a bearing on the fiscal deficit. I know how you approach this question with respect to the words. तो आपने कहीं पे you must have read this technique कि भाई where the extreme words are used, those statements are usually wrong. But this is a conceptual question. This is checking your basics. बेसिक्स चेक कर रहा है बेटा ये तो आपके. ये वो ट्रेंड वाला क्वेश्चन नहीं है जहां पे एनॉर्मसली, स्टीडीली, कॉन्स्टेंटली इट इज गेटिंग चेक. नहीं, वो तो है ही नहीं है. ये तो बेसिक चेक कर रहा है आपका. ठीक है. नेक्स्ट इज इट विल एनॉर्मसली. अच्छा छोड़ो. Had your option or answer changed if the word enormously would not have been there? Had your option or the answer changed if the word enormously would not have been there? So how can we say that if you go through the statement 3, I'll get aside the board. Look at the statement 3. What it is saying is, it will increase the growth and size of the economy of India and will enable it to overtake China in the near future. How can we conclude that? This is very subjective. We cannot conclude that with the implementation of one tax reform, our economy will multiply or increase manifold, and in near future we will be so large, or we will grow with such a good rate that we will surpass the growth level of China. We cannot conclude that, because that was not the advantage or the agenda behind launching or introducing of GST. ठीक है, हटा दो ये वर्ड्स. यहाँ तो सिर्फ what they are checking is your basics. So even if you are little confused on this, you should not go wrong on this, bhai. You cannot afford to go wrong on this because this is related to balance of payment. आया प्रत्युष समझ? How do we have to approach a question? ये वाली जो approach है ना, ये consistently, drastically, enormously, this is applicable with respect to the trends wale question, where a trend has been asked in a particular statement that the import of rice has been, or the export of rice has been consistently or drastically increased in India in last 5 years. That is where you have to apply the SMART technique if you're not sure of the trend, if you're not aware of the trend. ठीक है ना? तो even if we eliminate second three, this is gone and this is gone. And third one, as I told, we are not sure. We are not sure that the tax revenue will grow so much that we will surpass as to what China is up to. So statement this is also wrong, and correct option is this. Are ये चीजें समझ? कुछ clarity मिल रही है दिमाग में? Are you getting clear with how to approach the questions? Very good, very good. Chalo. Moving on to the next question, which talks about with reference to Financial Stability and Development Council, FSDC. ठीक है? Consider the following statement. Fact check question, factual check, conceptual, how to use concepts in eliminating the statement. So if you would know that FSDC was made in year 2010, and when was Niti Aayog made? Niti Aayog कौन से year में बना था? Tell me. When was Niti Aayog formed? What is the year of the formation of Niti Aayog? 1991? तो अपने आप ही this is gone and this is gone. 2014-15, when there was a change of the government, that the planning commission which was there in India was replaced by Niti Aayog, right? तो जिसको ये पता है और ये पता है कि it was formed in 2010, तो the first statement goes automatically wrong. We are left with these two statements. It is headed by Union Finance Minister and it monitors the macro-prudential supervision of the economy. What it also does is it regulates, it coordinates between various industry regulators. That is the role of what? That is the role of FSDC, that it regulates or coordinates amongst various industry regulators like IDAI, like SEBI. Industry regulators कौन है? SEBI is the watchdog of capital market. IDAI is the regulator of what? Insurance market. So this cell of the government, this council of the government, coordinates the functions between various regulators of the industry. So option 2 and 3 are correct. Moving on to the next question. आया देखो, there has been a persistent deficit budget, मतलब government is in negative, ठीक है, year after year. Which action of the following can be taken by the government to reduce the deficit? Now how you have to approach the question that there is already a negative balance. इसको किस तरीके से लेना है? पॉकेट है, पॉकेट में ऑलरेडी होल हो चुका है, मतलब देयर इज नो मनी, दैट वी आर इन डेट, हमने लोन ले रखा है फ्रेंड से, ठीक है. How do we see the fiscal deficit or any kind of deficit? When such conceptual questions are asked, how do you approach them? That already उधारी है हमारे ऊपर, किसकी? हमारे दोस्तों की. What steps we should not take that this gets aggravated? What actions of the following can be taken by the government to reduce? What steps we should take that the loan that is on our head, the deficit, the negative figure gets reduced? So first is reducing the revenue expenditure. मतलब revenue expenditure is मतलब खर्चा reduce कर रहे हैं, किसी भी टाइप का खर्चा है, we are not concerned or we do not care, खर्चा कम कर रहे हैं, that means this is right, ठीक है. नेक्स्ट, इंट्रोड्यूसिंग न्यू वेलफेयर स्कीम्स. न्यू इंट्रोडक्शन ऑफ न्यू वेलफेयर स्कीम्स मतलब न्यू खर्चा पाल रहे हैं. वी आर फाइंडिंग न्यू एवेन्यूज टू स्पेंड, and already when we are in negative figure, if we are introducing new welfare scheme, that means more of outflow will take place. So this is wrong. Now what is rationalizing subsidies? Rationalizing subsidies means limiting the subsidies to the avenue where it is needed the most. Earlier what was there, कहीं भी बांट रहे हैं subsidies, but with the rationalization of subsidies we are using the subsidies carefully. Will it not help us to save our expenditure? Will it not save our outflow of money? Certainly it will. And the last is reducing import duty. Now what is import duty? It is a source of revenue for the government. Now already when we are in deficit, if we reduce our avenues for earning the revenue, if we are reducing or limited the avenues from which where we can earn, फिर से क्या होगा? It will aggravate the situation. So this is also wrong. First and third कहाँ पे है? This is right. कुछ difficulty आई इस question को approach करने में? Did anyone find it difficult to approach this question? I told you that most of the questions from fiscal policy and this part of the syllabus, it is more of cause and effect. They will be asking you if the government wants to rationalize its deficit, or maybe the government wants to reduce its deficit, or the government wants to increase its revenue receipts, or what are the following which forms the part of the capital expenditure or the capital budget of the government. ऐसे questions आएंगे सारे. चलो, very good. If there is no doubt, we can move on to the next question. चलो, वही question आ गया. Which of the following is included in the capital budget of the government? When we say capital budget is what? Is any transaction which has a bearing on asset and liability position of the government. Asset and liability position of the government. That is what is capital budget, right? Now let us start with reading or taking all the statements one by one. Expenditure on acquisition of assets, मतलब हम कुछ खर्चा कर रहे हैं with which we are acquiring new asset. That means we are adding to the asset. It is changing the position of our balance sheet. This is right. Loans received from the foreign government. Loans received from the foreign government. That means we have to return it back. This loan that we have taken is our liability. It is our responsibility. It is a liability to return it back. So liability है, तो मतलब it is again changing the asset and liability position. The last is loans and advances granted to the states and the union government. Loans and advances granted, मतलब loans दिए हैं. The money is yours. The money is of the union government, and the union government has provided to the state government to use it. So the option is that this is their asset. Who is saying the Bhavani, Ankit? Why do you think that answer is one only? Kyun bhai? This is right now we just talked about that this is also the loans received from the foreign government is what? Is our liability. Loan diya. Let's forget about the loans between the foreign government. Let's suppose I give you 100 rupees as a loan. Forget about loan. I have lent you rupees 100. How would you take it? You would take it as a responsibility that I have to return this 100 rupees to ma'am, right? When you get that 100, when you earn 100 rupees back, you have the responsibility. It will always be at the back of your mind that it was my responsibility. It is my responsibility. It is my liability to return the 100 rupees back to my faculty. है ना? अंकित क्यों भाई सी क्यों सेकंड की बात कर तो रहे हैं अभी. That is what I am explaining to Bhavani. ठीक है? So Bhavani, where were we? So if I am extending you rupees, or if I am giving you rupees 100, so how will you treat it? That it is your responsibility to return it back to me. If it is your responsibility, means that it is your liability to return it back to me. Okay? So if it is a liability, if that 100 rupees which you have got through me is your liability, that means it is adding when you are making your own balance sheet. So this is your balance sheet, this is asset, this is liability. Okay, na? You have received money from me, means you have this 100 rupees will be shown where? It will be shown in your liability side, that this 100 rupees on the liability side will keep on reminding you that I have to return this 100 rupees to ma'am. And so is with the case of the governments. The Indian government has received loan from the foreign government. Matlab Indian government went to USA and asked for some amount or some $1 billion that we needed right now, and when we will earn it, we will return it back to you after 5 years. So for the next 5 years, how would Indian government treat that loan? It is the responsibility, it is the liability of the Indian government to return that money to the US government. That means it is changing the asset and liability position of the government. अब हुआ clear? अब हुआ क्लियर ये चीज? So that is why option D is right. For all of those who are having confusion with loan received from the foreign government, put yourself into the shoes of the government, that you are the government, or you are receiving a loan, you are receiving some udhar from a friend who is living outside the country. उधार तो उधार ही होता है ना, उधार भले इंडिया से ले या बाहर से ले. लोन इज अ लोन whether it is taken internally or externally. अब क्लियर हुई ये चीज? इज एनीवन हैविंग any doubt with respect to second statement? तो अभी पूछ लो. We will take it all over again, we will discuss it all over again. बताओ, is anyone having any doubt? थर्ड स्टेटमेंट को लेके किसी को डाउट है? Is anyone having doubt with respect to third statement? Let's discuss it right now. You say yes, I will discuss it all over again. बताओ. I'm waiting for all of you to reply. Are you having any doubt in any of the three statements? We can discuss it again. No problem. Chalo. That means we can move ahead. Fine. Chalo. So please be very clear as to what forms the part of the capital expenditure and what forms the part of the revenue budget, as well as what forms the part of the capital budget. Please clear rehna. Low hanging fruits are ye. These are low hanging fruits. You cannot afford to go wrong on such easy questions. ठीक है? चलो. With reference to 14th Finance Commission, which of the following statement is correct? Now we do not have to talk about or read about as to what 14th Finance Commission was up to. We are least concerned as to what 14th Finance Commission provided for. What do we have to update ourselves with as to what has 15th Finance Commission recommended for? What are the recommendations of 15th Finance Commission? First thing that you have to know is that by the 14th Finance Commission, the 14th Finance Commission provided for the vertical devolution of 42%, but this has been reduced by 15th Finance Commission, and the new figure is 41%. Okay, this is how, yes, UPSC PCS mentor, these are freebies from UPSC sites कि लो भाई कर लो, जाओ सिमरन जी लो अपनी जिंदगी. So easy questions, नहीं गलत कर सकते भाई हम. Niranjan, even if the foreign loan is used for revenue expenditure, it doesn't even matter. How would you treat that? It is a loan for us. वो आपके पास पैसा आया है, आप उस पैसे को no matter whatever you do, उसको रखो, उसके ऊपर सो जाओ, उसको खर्च करो, you burn it up. We are least bothered. The question asks you as to how would you treat, whether you would treat a loan taken or a loan received by the foreign government under the capital budget or not. बस जो मर्जी करो, उसके बाद फ्री में बांटो, अपनी जेब में रख लो, we are not concerned. All we have to tell it that it is, whether it forms the part of the capital budget or not. Yes, because it is a loan, it changes the asset and liability position of the government. Clear? Chalo. Now talking about the revenue sharing formula by the 15th Finance Commission, what are the parameters that has been used by 15th Finance Commission? And these are the parameters that was used by 14th Finance Commission. Okay. Now one thing that you have to know is, who would tell me that 14th Finance Commission relied on which census? Which population census did the 14th Finance Commission relied on, and which population census did the 15th Finance Commission relied on? Jaldi se. Who would tell me this? That which, yes, Gaurav, very good. And what about the 14th Finance Commission? On which census did it rely on? Which population census did 14th Finance Commission rely on, or the 14th Finance Commission used which population census? Was it 2011 or was it 1971? UPSC PCS mentor. 14th Finance Commission used 2011 census. Okay. You do not have to guess, Pratyush. Go Google it fast and let me know what is the correct answer. Do not do these guesswork over here. बताओ जल्दी से. Check the Google. Okay, UPSC PCS mentor. So I am just curious. That's why I'm asking this UPSC PCS mentor. Do you provide mentoring service, or what made you write your name as UPSC PCS mentor? So what I am assuming is that you are into mentoring services. You provide mentoring for to UPSC aspirants and to PCS aspirants also. Is that the case with you? Is that the case with you? ऐसा है क्या कुछ? Then we would be very glad to know as to under what. Yes, Bhavani, you're very much right. Yeah, so we would be very glad to know as to under what name, under what channel are you providing the mentorship program? Yes, Ankit, very good, very good. That 1971 census was discarded because certain states have been in the disadvantaged position because they claim that in the last 3 decades they have put in a lot of efforts to control the population explosion, and that is why the 15th Finance Commission should use the new population census, that is 2011 one. Okay, so then how come, why is your name being written as UPSC PCS mentor? Why do you opt to choose such name? What made you go for this name? Just curious, that's why asking. Anyway, chalo. Okay, so where were we? We were talking about the parameters used by the 14th Finance Commission and the 15th Finance Commission. So if you see, there are 2 additional parameters added by the 15th Finance Commission. The first one being the tax effort and the other one being the demographic performance. So tax effort, which means that whichever state has put in extra efforts to improve the tax collection, they would be provided with the 2.5% of the entire quota. Along with that, demographic performances, what demographic performance tells us that whichever state has put in efforts to control the population in their respective states, they would get the higher chunk of it. Then income distance. What is the income distance? It is the distance between the GSDP, that is the gross state domestic product of the state which has the highest GSDP, along with the state which is having the lowest GSDP. So a state which has the lowest GSDP would get higher chunk of the devolution as compared to the one which has the higher GSDP. Fine, that means the difference is studied as to know as to which states are lagging behind. So that is where they will get more in order to cope up with their situation. Next is forest and ecology cover. So whosoever has made an effort to preserve forest and ecology, so 10% is granted to them. Next is the area. So 15% has been allocated as per the area. Jiska zyada bada area, the states which are having bigger area would be granted more of funds because their claim is that we need, because there is more area under their management, so they would need more of funds. And the last is the population. So if you see, population is granted 15%. Earlier it was 27.5%. so this is something which should be on your tips. Another fact that should be on your tips is the use of census of 2011. Now with this we come to an end of our topic public finance and fiscal policy. What we will start is the financial markets. From now we have 1 hour to go, and the next 1 hour क्या बात करने वाले हैं हम बात करेंगे फाइनेंशियल मार्केट्स के बारे में. Can we start with that? Can we start with the financial markets? Can we start with the financial markets? Now, if you see, the financial markets are the markets where the instruments are there. Instruments are there to raise money. Okay? Just a broader picture of it. It can be divided into two parts. The one is the money market. The other is the capital market. So if a firm has to borrow, or a bank or any institution has to borrow for a period which is less than 1 year, money market is the place for them. Okay, UPSC PCS mentor. Capital market is the place which provides avenue for if the money has to be raised for a period of more than 1 year. If the money is needed for more than 1 year, then the capital market is the place, whereas money market is the place where the money is available for a period of less than 1 year. Capital market can be further divided into primary and secondary. Primary market is the place where the shares are listed for the first time. The transaction is between the company and the investor. कभी भी confusion हो, so this is the parameter. Whenever the transaction is between the company and the investor, it is there, it is conducted in the primary market. Whenever the transaction is between the investor to investor, it is the secondary market. So this is the litmus test of knowing if you're getting confused in the exam as to what or a particular transaction is of the primary market or the secondary market, and the broader bifurcation of the financial market is the money market and the capital market. Now, what you have to prepare for the exams, the topics that you need to know is, first is the very important and the repetitive theme is instruments of money market. Instruments of money market, kahin na kahin ghuma fira ke it is being asked. Instruments of money market like T-bills, commercial paper, commercial bills, certificate of deposit. All of these should be on your tips. Next, components of forex balance. Important topics बता रही हूँ यहाँ पे, which are very important, and that is how or where around which the question revolves. Components of forex balance of India, which is foreign currency asset, which is gold, which is SDR, which is reserve position with IMF. What else do you need to know? The questions are like around valuation of currency. Questions are around valuation of currency. Like what would be the effect on if the currency appreciates? What would be the effect if the currency depreciates? What would be the effect on various parties in case of devaluation of the currency? So these are the three broad areas where the question revolves from. What is the conversation going on the chat? Let me read. Oh, UPSC PCS mentor, first I would need to know your real name, because this is very uncomfortable for me to call you as the whole UPSC PCS mentor. And Niranjan, let it be, please, that is something personal as to what this Mr. Mentor wants to do. You restrict yourself to as to what we are talking about. If you have any doubt, you can talk to me. If you want to know anything else, we can certainly meet over Instagram, over the live chat, where we can all get or gather and talk about as to what has been my experience. If you want me to conduct a session on that, we will certainly meet live on Instagram, and you can talk and ask as many as other questions from economy. I mean, not from the economy, as to what has been my experience, how I ended up in teaching economy, what made me get inclined towards this subject, what has been my educational background. ये सब सारी बातें वहां करेंगे. Mr. Mentor, all of this we cannot talk here, because other students would suffer if we chit chat all of this. All of this can take place on some informal platform, for which is Instagram. Chalo. So coming back to the topics that we have to focus on is the instruments of money market. So ye cheeze, this should be on your tips. What is the feature of T-bills? The types of T-bill that is prevailing in India. Commercial papers. What is the commercial difference between the commercial paper, the difference between the commercial bill, and the certificate of deposit. Bhai, ye cheeze tips pe honi chahiye. You cannot go wrong with that. Also, another instrument which is very important is participatory notes. Okay. Next, why do you need to know components of forex balances? Why you need to know the components of forex balances? There has been question previously asked from this area. Also this year current affairs kya tha, that in the second quarter of financial year 2021-2022, India achieve its all-time high of forex balance. All-time high tha bilkul. तो क्या कर सकते हैं examiner? They can pick up a theme, that is the forex reserve, since it was at its all-time high, and they could ask you a question on what are the components of forex reserves of the RBI. So you should know, and you should also know the chronology or the sequence of the ascending and descending order, which has the highest weight, which is the highest amongst all out of this four. And also you need to prepare yourself really well on the lines of what is SDR, special drawing rights. Kyun? Again, there was a current affairs related to it. And what was the current affairs related to it is that with respect to SDR, it is what? It is special drawing rights. Special drawing rights. Kya current affairs tha? So can anyone tell me that as to what was the current affairs with respect to special drawing rights? Batao. Acha, theek hai. I'll take. I am just using the red pen so that I can just demarcate it. But I got it. I will not use it now. Theek hai. Now, what was the current affair with respect to special drawing rights? Can somebody tell it to me? Why was it in news? Can anyone tell me as to why SDR was in news? बताइए. अब कुछ पता चला? 456 बिलियन. Oh no, yeah, that is also the news, but during the second wave of pandemic, actually IMF, what it did was it granted 456 billion of what SDRs. One thing that you need to know is this 456 billion is not 456 billion US dollars. It is not a currency in itself. It is a value or it is a unit. ठीक है ना? And the value of one SDR, if the value of one SDR, if we convert into dollars, is 1.42 dollar. So one SDR, एक तरीके से you can consider it as a token. एक token है which is known by the name of SDR. And what is the value of one token? It is somewhere around 1.42 dollar. So IMF granted 456 billion of SDRs to its members to tackle the wave of pandemic. And how much did India got out of it? India has how much percentage? India has this percentage, that is 2.36%. How much India got is 12 something billions of SDR. Now when this 12 something billions of SDR is getting converted into dollar, 17.36 US billion dollars is what India got. So a question for you to know and to scratch your head is whether the quota provided under SDR is considered as a loan, whether the amount provided under SDR is considered as a loan, क्या इसको लौटाना होता है, do the countries have to return it back to the IMF or not? ये चीज is, that is how you have to approach these topics, that is how you have to prepare these topics. तो बताओ जल्दी से. चलो assignment, this is the homework for you. That is what we used to write. CW is the class work जब छोटे थे, and HW is the homework. So this question is homework for you. I hope the screen is visible to you. ठीक है? So this is very important. Another important topic for you is to understand as to the difference between the FDI versus FPI. How I have learned what FDI or what is the major difference between FDI versus FPI is, FPI is like an affair, where FDI is what is an arrangement of marriage. FPI for me is an arrangement of affair. Okay, and FDI is what is an arrangement of marriage for me, where it is difficult to leave and quit out of the company, whereas if you see or talk about the FPI, it is just like a relationship. आज है कल नहीं है. It is like an affair. We are free to enter into it and we are free to leave from it. Also, what you need to know as to what are the instruments in which the FPI invests and what is the instrument in which FDIs invest. So FDI is usually into equity. It's not usually, but it is only and only into the equity market, whereas FPI, if we say, it could be in the equity plus the debt instruments. FPI has to be within the limit of 10%. If it goes more than that, it becomes FDI. Clear? It is usually the FDIs is for, sorry, FPIs is for the short-term purpose and FDIs is for the long-term purpose. FDIs is done either in the primary market, sorry, they are done in the primary, whereas FPIs could be in the primary or in the secondary market. ये चीजें टिप्स पे होनी चाहिए, इसमें कोई confusion, there should be no confusion that should prevail in your mind with respect to the difference between FDI versus FPI. ठीक है? Are we clear with this? Now that you know that what are the topics that you have to prepare, can we start with the questions? I have told you the broad ambit, broad categories of the topic that you have to prepare from financial instruments. money market, capital market, FDI versus FPI, forex reserve balance of the country, what is SDR, why was it in news? You need to know that because of the quota that has been allocated, the amount that was released. And the last topic was what? The last topic was the question with respect to cause and effect and the applied part of valuation of currency, appreciation, depreciation and devaluation. Also, what is the difference between depreciation and devaluation? Kya difference hota hai iske beech mein? Can anyone tell me? Till the time we start the question, I would really appreciate if someone provides me as to what is the difference between the depreciation and devaluation of currency. Chalo. Now let us start with the first question. Ye question, let's go through the question and then I'll tell you how the question was picked up. From where the question was picked up, why it was there, that it was there in the year 2021, asked to everyone. With reference to the India, consider the following statement. Retail investors through Demat account can invest in treasury bills and government Indian debt bonds in primary market. The next is the negotiated dealing system. Order matching is the government securities trading platform of the Reserve Bank of India. And the last is CDSL is jointly promoted by Reserve Bank of India and Bombay Stock Exchange. So how to approach this question? Bhai, ye to thoda difficult hai. Let's leave it right now. I am not sure as to who promoted CDSL, whether it was promoted by some private company or whether it was promoted by BSC or some consortium of banks. Abhi nahi pata hai mujhe. What I know is this. What I'm very sure of is this statement, because this statement was in current affairs. This was in news in order to deepen the Indian bond market. RBI opened the gates for the retail investors like you and me to participate in what? To participate in the treasury bills. Isse pehle, before this breaking news, retail investors were not allowed to participate in the treasury bills and the bonds, the government bonds. Who were allowed to participate? The banks were allowed to participate, mutual funds were allowed to participate, insurance companies were allowed to participate, but the retail investors like you and me were not allowed to participate. So this was the news. This thing I'm very sure of. And along with this news, when this news was published, this was also there. Do you know what is e-Kuber? E-Kuber kya hai? What is e-Kuber? Has anyone heard of this term e-Kuber? Yes, PCS mentor. Yes. This was the news last year. That is why I'm very sure of the statement. I have left this statement and I'm telling the students how to approach if such question comes. So when this news came, so what my question was that what is e-Kuber? Batao. What is e-Kuber? Are you people Googling as to what e-Kuber is? Shame on you then. Shame on you then if you're Googling it. What launched by what RBI? What launched? What is e-Kuber? I'm not asking as to who launched it. What is e-Kuber, bhai? Kya hai? It's shame on you if you don't know this. It is literally the time of introspection that you need to do. That 2 months before the exams, you don't know as to what e-Kuber is. This is literally awful. What is e-Kuber? Yes, Netra. It's a core banking solution offered by whom? By RBI. That is a way by which RBI stays connected with all the banks in the country. That is the central banking system provided and that connects all the banks of the country with whom? With the RBI, right? And a part of it, a component of it is negotiated dealing system order matching. it is where the trading of the government securities takes place. And when this news was released that now the retail investors can also participate in the bond market, along with that it provided that by kahan se kharidenge. And the next question is, yes, Ankit, CBS solution, that is core banking solution. So the next question was, from where do the retail investors participate into it? So that was the system that was provided in the news itself, and that is why dikhane ke liye. So this was the news in Business Standard. This would have been there for sure in two beloved papers that most of the UPSC aspirants read, that is Hindu and Indian Express. Acha chalo ye batao, will take just 2 minutes of your time. Do you just keep referring, do you keep yourself restricted to Hindu and Indian Express? दो ही newspaper पढ़ते हो आप सब? These are the only two papers that you read? Very good, PCS mentor. It's good that you are recalling. Batao. So, because that is what most of the aspirants do, they keep themselves restricted to either it is Indian Express or the Hindu. What is the case with all of you? Just wanted to know as to what is your psyche. It's not that it is a good thing or a bad thing, or I'm gonna comment on you. It is just that I want to know as to what you people are up to what limit your horizons are extended with respect to reading. Acha, Ankit, you are reading Live Mint also. What about others? What about others? PCS mentor, are you limited to Indian Express? It is okay. It is really okay to say, yes, I am just limited to Indian Express. And please, for those who do not read any newspaper, please do not reply on this, because I would really get upset and irked if you say that we do not read any newspaper. Acha, chalo, very good, Bhavani, that you read news, that gazette by Edukemy. Netra, it's good because see, what we are doing is we are just not covering articles from Hindu and Indian Express. We also provide very beautiful articles published under ORF, Business Standard, Business Line. Okay, mentor, what do you resort to? The monthly magazines? That is what you resort to? Or some videos? Just curious enough to know. Because I was just thinking of, some of my, actually 3-4 of the students actually inquired me on my Instagram handle as to how to approach the newspaper, which newspapers to read. So I was thinking of making a video over there and posting on my Instagram as to which other newspapers you should read, what are the editorials that you should refer to, what are the authors that you should refer to, writers, the particular columns which are there in Business Standard and ORF that you should also read along. If it's not that you should just restrict yourself to Indian Express, you can leave Indian Express altogether. Also, there's a reel that is being made by me, where I have told my students what is my personal favorite. So for me, my personal favorite is Indian Express along with the Hindustan Times, because they're very catchy infographics that the Hindustan Times use. All of that I have provided on my Instagram handle. Very nice infographics, that is what Hindustan Times provide. Chalo, let's not talk about it anymore. I will soon make a post over there on the handle as to what other newspapers and the editorials you can refer to. That would help you supplement your notes for your mains. Chalo. So this was the news in Business Standard, and it actually talked about what? It told that now a major structural reform has taken place, where now the retail investors, the retail investors can also now participate in what? Into the bidding of the bond market. The following action was taken in order to deepen the bond market in India. Along with it also told that central bank's trading platform for government securities is what? Is called negotiated dealing system order matching segment or NSDA, NDSOM. और बस यहीं से ही क्वेश्चन उठाया हुआ था, यहीं से ही क्वेश्चन उठाया हुआ था. And that is what you have to read. But you know this was a very big structural reform, but you have to read the information in its entirety. Oh, that's good, Bhavani, that you watched that video. My Instagram handle, Mr. Mentor, is Nanki_B22. Yesterday also, I don't know whether you read that editorial or not, which I posted with respect to RBI's dilemma being a public debt manager and the controller of inflation. Padha tha ke nahi padha tha? Immediately after the class, I posted it there. I don't know how many of you read it. Okay, please, Mr. Mentor, that is not a problem. So let's get back to the question. So this is right, this is right. Okay. Now, if you see, if you are sure of this, so first and second, and your answer is sorted. Even if you do not know this, तो ऐसा कोई option ही नहीं है which says that 1, 2 and 3. इस question में problem तब होती जब the option would have been 1, 2 and 3. But right now, if we are sure of this, we are through this question. And this was a question in 2020 year. The last year prelim का question था ये. बच्चे इस पे अड़े रहे. They kept scratching their heads on this statement. नहीं सोचो ना, छोड़ दो, जो नहीं आता छोड़ो उसको और आगे चलो. ये दोनों तो आने चाहिए थे. ठीक है, चलो. Next question is, consider the following. Which of the above can be included in the foreign direct investment? Too much of checking of your concepts. Even I, took 5 minutes, almost like 4-5 minutes to solve this question. How many of you know the answer of this question? Because mind it, whosoever is providing the answer, I would be talking about how the person or how you have approached, what was the technique that you applied to solve this. Who amongst you know as to what is the answer of this question? I want to know. The reason I'm asking as to why I want to know as to what is your approach, because you never know kab padhate hue the student has a very beautiful approach which I am missing out on, and I would get another approach or altogether a different dimension of looking at the question. And that is why I'm asking you as to what is your approach. How would you approach this question? Please do not Google it, for God's sake. Just apply your mind, because you never know, you might come out with a very beautiful technique to solve this question. So how would you approach this question? So the question asks that which of this can be included in foreign direct investment. So in order to solve this question, you need to know as to what foreign direct investment is at the first stance. ठीक है, Ankit and Netra, I buy what you say, but I need to know the approach. Kindly provide me in the chat as to how did you approach this answer. How did you come at the conclusion that A is the right answer? कैसे किया इसको? I really got very confused when I read this question. In my first reading, I really got confused, but step by step I followed, and that is how I eliminated and reached the final answer. I would really love to know what technique Ankit and Netra followed for this. Okay, Netra. Okay, so we have taken this question earlier also, so I would not consider as to your approach. Acha, so had you been attempting the paper for 2021, let's suppose this question comes in 2022, how would you approach it? Just because that you have ratified it, that's why. What if I change some of, or if I change it with the, say, IDR, यहाँ पे मैं IDR कर दूं, will your answer change? Hi Sofyan, hi, how are you? नेत्रा, अगर मैं इसको IDR कर दूं तो what if I change it to IDR? I remove this and the rest remains the same. I change it to IDR. Will your answer change? Yes, Ankit. Very good. So if you see, if you start from this, NRI deposits, it's like a liability. They are deposited in banks. They are not FDIs. They are not investment made into the company. They are not investment made into the company. They are just like deposits that what we do in the bank. If a non-resident is making a deposit, it is known as NR deposit. And that is like a, that is what, not like a, but it is a liability. Right? तो ये दोनों तो rule out हो गए. ठीक है? Now what we have is, we can start with foreign institution investment. Foreign, even if you don't know as to what FCCB is, you don't know what GDRs is. Okay, let's start with, because if we are sorted with second statement, we know that this will be the right answer. Okay, so second wala is foreign institutional investment with certain conditions. Now foreign institutional investment with certain condition का मतलब क्या हुआ? What does it means is, foreign institutional investment above the limit of 10% gets converted into what? Gets converted into FDI. That is not FII anymore. That gets converted into FDI. So this is sorted and we are here on our correct answer. क्यों नेत्रा? क्यों? So नेत्रा, मैंने क्या पूछा आपसे? I asked, first, second is same, GDR हटा के I am writing it IDR, and the fourth option is also same. ठीक है ना? Now here, the reason why I asked you this question is because I wanted to check your concept, and the concept that you applied here is not right. Because how you approach this question, because you have earlier discussed with me in the class. Whereas your technique to approach this question should be, you should have focused on this, that the non-resident deposit, the deposits are what? Are the liability. Deposit कौन से होते हैं? There is time deposit, there is saving deposit. पढ़ा था ना ही क्लास में हमने. We read about this in class, that there are two types of deposits, saving deposit and time deposit, right? And when, so what is that for a bank? That is a liability. हमने अपना पैसा बैंक के पास रखवाया है, so bank has the responsibility of returning it back to me whenever I want. How it is FDI? It is not FDI. FDI is what? Investment into the company, buying equity shares of the company. So, but what are we saying here? It is a deposit into the bank. We are not investing into the equity of some company. ठीक है ना? The answer would have still be the same. If it is IDR, GDR, ADR, the question revolves around this statement. The examiner wants to check your knowledge with respect to your clarity of concept for non-resident deposits. समझ आई? अब clear है ना? चलो. So if I change the option 3 to IDR, the answer would have still be the same, because this has not changed. The fourth statement, or the fourth option is the one where the trick lies. So ये गलत, and this again would have been the right answer. What is Sofyan telling? You are reading the NCERTs along with understanding syllabus and PYQs. Very good, Sofyan. Keep it up, keep up the pace. Change your gears, because the prelims is on our head. Now the next question, gold tranche, which is also known as reserve tranche, refers to what? It's a very easy question, again related to what? Related to composition, of forex reserve. Why we need to prepare this topic? Acha, okay, fine. Okay, Netra, I got it. Why we need to prepare this topic well again for this year is because of the current affairs, because of the news that India touched its all-time high of forex balance. Clear? So a very easy question. A credit system granted by IMF to its member. You need to know one thing, that it is not a currency. IMF की currency नहीं है reserve tranche, and why it is known as gold tranche? Can anyone tell me that why the reserve tranche is also known as gold tranche? Is there anyone who is aware of the fact? Those who have taken the class from me, those who have attempted, those who have appeared in the crash course session would be in the position to know as to why it is known as gold tranche. Come on, I'm waiting for it. Why IMF, why the credit system granted by IMF is also known as gold tranche? कौन बताएगा इसका आंसर? At least I would expect the answer from my students who are there in my crash course for economy. Netra, you were there, right? You need to answer as to why it is known as gold tranche. Netra, are you fiddling with your notes? Going back and checking as to why it is known as gold tranche? I'm waiting for you to reply. Chalo, till then we'll move forward to the next question, which is, what is the effect of devaluation of a currency? So what is the difference between the depreciation and devaluation? Is that devaluation is a deliberate attempt done by the central bank to reduce the value of its domestic currency with respect to a foreign currency, whereas depreciation happens because of the market forces of demand and supply. Those who have this doubt as to what is the difference between the depreciation and the devaluation. The difference between the depreciation and devaluation is that devaluation has been or is being deliberately, it is being deliberately done by central bank of the country. And which country is accused of often devaluating its currency? Can anyone tell me this? At least 2 months down the line, you have prelims on your head. At least this is something which I would expect from you, as to know as to which country is accused of deliberately devaluating its currency in order to improve the level of its export. Which country is accused of devaluating its currency? And that is why a war was there between the two countries, the two superpowers of the world, because of the one country which deliberately devaluates its currencies to improve the level of its exports. Yes, Ankit, it is China. So devaluation is something which is deliberately done by the central bank of the country, where it reduces the value of its domestic currency corresponding to a foreign currency in order to improve its export position, in order to make its export more competitive. Devaluation is done, whereas depreciation is not in the hands of the central bank of the country. Depreciation of the currency is there because of the market forces of demand and supply. Are we clear with this? Are we clear with this? Now tell me, if you are clear with this, then what is the answer of devaluation? What is the answer for this question? What is the answer for this question? For those who are, so there are some students who are actually telling that the answer is C. It improves the trade balance. कैसे होगा बताओ अंकित, कैसे trade balance improve होगा? One thing which we are very, chalo, let's approach this question one by one. We'll pick up the statement. So one thing which I'm very sure of, that the devaluation of currency is or is done with in order to improve the competitiveness of the exports in the foreign market. तो ये तो सही है, we know that. ठीक है? So this is eliminated and this is eliminated. It improves the trade balance. How are we sure of that? How are we sure of that? That improves the trade balance. And those who are providing B as the right answer, I would want to ask you, all of those who are saying it increases the foreign value of domestic currency. Q. Devaluation, what are we doing? We are reducing the value of our domestic currency with respect to the foreign currency. Devaluation kya hota hai? I think most of you are not very clear with as to what devaluation is. So let's suppose, how do I explain you? Okay, so there's $1. Okay, $1 is equal to 70 rupees. And there is Raj, who is there in India. Okay, this is India. Sorry for the poorest map that I've ever made of India. So Raj, if Raj has to buy $1, how much money does Raj have to take out from his pocket? It is 70 rupees. Okay, and in India, one Lay's packet of chips is equal to 10 rupees. These are the three informations that you need to know right now. So $1 is equal to 70 rupees, which means that Raj, if wants to buy one unit of, or $1, has to take out 70 rupees to buy $1. Another information that you need to know is that one packet of chips, one packet of Lay's in India costs rupees 10. Okay. Now what did central bank do is it devalued its currency. Devalued मतलब उसकी value कम करती. It has reduced its value. And how the value is reduced? अब आप कुछ लोग कहेंगे कि मैम वैल्यू तो बढ़ गई, but you do not have to see in it like this. You have to see with respect to the foreign currency. Earlier, in order if Raj has to buy $1, he has to take out 70 rupees from his pocket. But now the value of the domestic currency has been reduced by our central bank. So now if Raj has to buy $1, how many rupees does the Raj has to take out from his pocket? It is 80 rupees. ठीक है, आर वी क्लियर विद दिस? मतलब नुकसान हो रहा है ना. पहले तो 70 रुपए में डॉलर आ जाता था, 70 रुपए जेब से निकालते थे एंड आई यूज्ड टू गेट $1, बट नाउ आई हैव टू शेल्फ आउट 80 rupees to buy $1. ठीक है, that means for me dollar has become more expensive. Now how this devaluation is leading to increase in export is, so there is John who is sitting in America. John is sitting in America and he really likes our Lay's that is sold in India. So earlier, John, when he used to give $1, he was in a position to get 7 packets of chips. Earlier, John used to get 7 packets of chips in $1. Sorry. Now, because $1 is now for rupees 80. Now, if John gives out $1, how many packets of chips will John get? How many packets of chips will John get now when the $1 is equal to rupees 80? Batao. I would repeat the question as to how many packets of chips John will get now if he buys or if he provides $1. पहले जॉन $1 निकालता था, that was equal to 70, 10 रुपए का एक पैकेट था. So John used to get 7 packets of Lay's because 10 rupees was the cost of one packet of Lay's. But now when the $1 is equal to 80 rupees, Lay's ka rate is still the same. Now if John comes to India and gives out $1, How many packets of chips John will get? How many packets of chips? Am I asking something which is very alien to you? 8 packets of chips. Tell me if you're not getting this concept. I'll start from the scratch. Tell me if you're not getting the concept. In 2019, $1 is equal to 70 rupees. John came to India, took out $1 and got 7 packets of chips. In 2022, $1 is equal to rupees 80. Again, John came to India. John visited India, took out $1 and got 8 packets of chips. Right? So, what did increase? It is the exports that got increased. Earlier, India used to export 7 packets of chips to America for the consumption by John. But now, if you see, India is exporting how much? India is exporting 8 packets of chips. So what is the first effect that the devaluation is having is that it is increasing the export level of our country. It is increasing the export of our country. Are we clear with this now? अब समझ आ रहा है कि नहीं समझ आ रहा है? Are we clear with this? Is there any confusion that is still prevailing in your mind? Earlier, India was exporting 7 packets of chips to John in America. Now, India is exporting 8 packets of chips to John sitting in America. Is there any confusion with respect to that? Which means that earlier 7 units was what was being exported, but now with the devaluation of currency, the export has got increased. The export has increased by 1 unit. That means devaluation leads to increase in the export. Are we clear with this? Right. So that means if we are clear with that concept, so we should be clear with this statement also, that the effect of devaluation of a currency that it improves the competitiveness of the domestic exports in the foreign market. Right? The first statement is right. So our answer should be between these two statements. Now coming on to the next statement, which says it increases the foreign value of domestic currency. Kahan? Foreign value of domestic currency. फॉरेन वैल्यू ऑफ डोमेस्टिक करेंसी कहाँ इंक्रीज हुई है? वो तो डिक्रीज हो गई है ना. अर्लियर 70 रुपए में only for 70 rupees we used to get a dollar, but now for 80 rupees we have to spend 80 rupees to get 1 unit of dollar. तो कहाँ इंक्रीज हुई है? The value of the foreign value of domestic currency has fallen. It has reduced. So this statement is wrong. Now tell me if there's any confusion. And how, and for those people who have provided that it improves the trade balance, how can we be very sure that with the increase in export, how can we conclude that with the increase in export, our trade balance would also improve? How can we conclude that? We are not sure that whether with the increase in our export, our imports have reduced. You never know that. At the one hand, exports are getting increased, but at the same time, imports are also getting increased. So how can we conclude that with the devaluation of currency, there is improvement in the trade balance? We cannot conclude that. We cannot conclude that with the devaluation of our currency, our imports would also reduce. That is something which is likely to happen, but we cannot conclude it shortly. Right? So the correct answer is just 1 only, because that is something which is bound to happen. It increases the competitiveness of our domestic goods in the foreign market. Are we clear with this question? Are we clear with this question now? I'm waiting for you all to reply so that we can move ahead. Okay. The next question is, as I told you, instruments of money market. Very important topic for you in the upcoming exam also. Instruments of money market, and this question talks about the 4 different statements which are there on the 4 different instruments of the money market. Money market is the one where the money is available for a period less than an year. 1 year. So let us start. What is the correct answer for this? If you want to start with the elimination technique, start with the statement 4. जब इतने सारे statement आते हैं, you should start or you should apply elimination technique and then jump to the answer. Straight away answer पे नहीं आने का है, पहले elimination apply करने का है. We have to apply elimination technique and then come to as to what is the right answer. So start with the option 4 or the statement 4. If you're sorted with statement 4, you would be in a position to eliminate 2 statements directly. So what does the 4th statement provides is, the zero coupon bonds are the interest bearing short-term bonds issued by scheduled commercial banks. So this itself is something which should raise your eyebrows, that zero coupon bond, by ek taraf likha hai zero coupon, that means there is no rate of interest that is being offered. Zero coupon bonds are the interest bearing. No, they are not interest bearing. They are issued at discount to face value. Zero coupon bonds are issued at discount to face value. So this is wrong. We are left with this and this. Just first is common. So what we have to finalize is what is the right statement, whether second is right or third is right. Now let us start with the second statement, which says that certificate of deposit is a long-term instrument issued by RBI to a corporation. The certificate of deposit is what? सबसे पहले तो it is not a long-term instrument. It is a short-term instrument which is there available in the money market, where the money is deposited for a period of less than a year. A bank issues a certificate of deposit to the depositor. So this is wrong. So correct answer is C. And this question could be attempted only when you are very sure of and you are very thoroughly, very conceptually clear as to what are the features of the various instruments of money market. Shuru mein I have told you that you have to brace yourself with the features of various instruments that are there in the money market, and you can see the question. 4 statements, all of the 4 statements from the instruments of money market. Clear? Moving on to the next statement. Very interesting question, very easy one, I would say, as a low hanging fruit hai ye mere liye. LHF. So with reference to foreign direct investment in India, which of the following is considered as its major characteristic? What is the correct answer for this? What is FDI? What did I term FDI is? It's an arrangement of marriage. It's not an affair like FPI that you're free to walk in and free to walk out. It is an arrangement of marriage where your money is locked in for a certain period of time. Right? So what is the right answer? What is the right option for this statement? Is it C? What is the right option? Come on quickly. Yes, Rohit, tell me what is your query. Shahid is there. I would want all of you to answer very easy question as to what is the major feature or a characteristic of FDI. ये statement तो गलत है. Are we sure? It is the investment made by foreign institutional investor in the government securities. Galat. Sofyan, no. It is not made into the government securities. It is FDI is made into the equity. shares of the company. That is the first feature of FDI, that FDI is made, or the money is invested into the equity shares of the company. Okay, so it is the investment which involves debt servicing. Debt servicing means you have to pay interest on it. Now at one side you're saying that the investment is made into equity shares. Now you should know that when the investment is made into equity shares, it does not involve repayment or payment of interest. So this statement is again wrong. What we are left with is first and the second statement. So first statement says that it is an investment through capital instruments, essentially in listed company. No, it is not the case. It could be in the non-listed company also. So what we are left with is the statement B. It is a largely non-debt creating capital flow. It is a non-debt creating instrument. It is a non-debt creating investment because it shows the ownership or the equity in the company. It shows the equity in the company. It is non-debt creating because it signifies the ownership of the investor into the what? In the company. बहुत easy था ये question. I don't know why there was variation in what you provided for. So much variation in the answer. That shows that you are not clear with the concepts. That itself shows and signifies only one thing, that you really need to brush up your concepts. Now let's move on to the next question. Again on the instruments. Which one of the following is issued by a registered portfolio investor to overseas investor who want to be part of the Indian stock market without registering themselves directly? So there is a foreign investor who wants to invest in Indian stock market, but they do not want to get themselves registered by opening a trading account and a demat account. Then what is the avenue? What is the instrument available with them? How can they invest in the Indian stock market? तो इसमें कैसे आएंगे? इसको कैसे करना है solve? Because you can easily solve, because now you know the features of these three instruments. What is certificate of deposit? It is the deposit. It is an certificate given by the bank to the depositor for depositing their money. We know that. What is a commercial paper? Commercial paper is issued by the corporations which is of high net worth for borrowing money. And what are the promissory notes? Promissory notes are the notes which has a bearing that it promises to pay the money written in the instrument. Even if you are not sure as to what participatory notes are, but you know as to what certificate of deposit is, you know as to what commercial paper is, you know what promissory note is. So you are left with only one option, and that is participatory notes. The next is, which one of the following is not the most likely measure the government or RBI takes to stop the slide of Indian rupee? So the situation is that the Indian currency, that is Indian rupee, is depreciating with respect to some foreign currency. What is the step that the government is not likely to take? The question is not asking what the government will do, but the question is asking what the government will not do in which situation where the currency is sliding. तो करिए इसको. How would you approach this question? How would you approach this question? How would you approach this question? So can we say that rupee is falling? Rupee is falling. Why rupee is falling? Because demand of dollar is increasing. Demand of dollar is increasing. Nobody is demanding Indian rupee. Everyone is demanding what? Dollars. And that is why rupee is falling. So let us start with each statement. So the first statement says that curbing imports of non-essential goods. Now, if there's a curb on import of non-essential goods, that means in order to settle the import bill, what do we need? We need dollars. We need dollars to settle the import bill. Now, if the import of non-essential goods and promoting export is something which the government will do, because exports will fetch us what? Exports will fetch us more of dollars. And what do we need right now is dollars only, because there is increase in the demand of dollar. So this is something which the government will not do. Next is encouraging Indian borrowers to issue rupee denominated masala bonds. Now, if the Indians issue rupee denominated masala bonds, in order to invest in masala bonds, the investors have to give the dollars, get the dollars converted into rupees, and then buy the masala bonds, because masala bonds are what? Masala bonds are rupee denominated. Now, if any Indian entity is issuing masala bonds, what is it inviting? It is inviting more of dollars to inflow into the country, which are getting exchanged into Indian rupees and then getting invested into masala bonds. So this is also something which the government will do, because the question is asking what the government will not do. This is something which the government will do. This is also something which the government will do. It will curb the import of non-essential goods, because in order to settle the import bill, what we have to do is we need dollars. जो चीजें essential नहीं है, we will curb the import of that, so that we can save on dollars. So this is ruled out. This is ruled out. Next is easing the conditions relating to external commercial borrowings. External commercial borrowings are what? They are the loan taken by the Indian entities outside the territory of the country in some foreign currency. External commercial borrowing क्या होती है? It is the another name of the loan taken externally by the Indian entities. Right? Now, if the conditions are relaxed with respect to external commercial borrowing, what will happen is, what will inflow? More of dollar, and that is what we need. And what are we left with? Following an expansionary monetary policy. इससे क्या होगा? If we follow an expansionary monetary policy, that means more rupee will be there in the hands of people. What do we need right now? We need dollars. So if we increase the inflow of, or more money in the hands of people, that is more rupee in the hands of people, there would be more rupee chasing dollars which are already less in the market. There would be more rupee that would be chasing dollars in the market. So this is something which the government will not do. The government will never follow an expansionist monetary policy when there is a slide in the Indian rupee which is being witnessed, because with respect, if the government follows the expansionist monetary policy, there would be injection of rupee in the country, and there would be more money, more Indian rupee that would be chasing less dollars, or the limited dollars that is available, leading to increase in the dollar rate. So this is the correct answer. So let me see as to how many questions are we left with. We are just left with 2 more questions that we will take in the starting of the next session, because right now we are already running out of time and I have to wind up the session. So thank you so much. With this question, I wind up the session. Only 2 more questions from the financial markets is left, which we will take in the starting of the next class. In the next class, I will be talking and discussing the questions from balance of payments. Is that okay with all of you? So signing off for the day, and happy Holi to all of you. Do enjoy a lot, but do not forget to study, and all the best to all of you. Keep studying, keep appearing for the mocks. The more you practice, the more is the chance that you will ace the exam. Goodbye to all of you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, Vakram. Bye-bye.